Lift your dress above your waist. 6 words. The translator's voice cracks on the last one. 37 women stop breathing. The barracks go so quiet you can hear frost forming on the windows. Renate, 24, Wehrmacht signals operator, feels her legs turn to water. 3 days ago she was decoding messages. Now she's standing in a wooden shack in Belgium, and an American soldier just said those words. This is it. This is what they warned us about. Sie werden uns schänden, das haben sie uns gesagt. They will violate us, that's what they told us. But something's wrong with the picture. The soldier isn't moving closer, he's standing by the door, and beside him, why is there a woman holding a clipboard? 847. German women in U.S. custody by January 1945. Renate is one of them. Typhus killed 3 million on the Eastern Front last year. Lice carry it. 94% of new POWs are crawling with them. The Americans have 72 hours to find carriers before the whole camp becomes a graveyard. Renate doesn't know any of this. All she knows is the words. Margit, 19, Luftwaffe Auxiliary, hasn't slept in 72 hours. She's shaking so hard her teeth click together. The woman next to her, Dorothea, 31, Army nurse captured at a field hospital, puts a hand on her arm, steadies her. The American woman steps forward. Nurse's uniform, Red Cross on her sleeve. She's holding something that looks medical, not a weapon, a clipboard, a pen. The soldier does something strange. He turns around, faces the wall. His rifle stays on his shoulder. Why would he turn around? The nurse points at Renate. You first. Renate's boots feel nailed to the floor. Her heart slams against her ribs. The propaganda plays in her head like a broken record. When they take you, they take everything. The Americans are worse than the Soviets. At least the Russians are quick. She looks at the nurse, at the clipboard, at the soldier's back. None of this makes sense. The nurse points again, says something in English. The translator swallows hard. Step forward, just the waist. They need to see your waistband. For inspection. Inspection of what? Renate takes one step, then another. Her uniform is stiff with dried mud and 3 weeks of sweat. It cracks as she moves. The nurse clicks her pen. The soldier doesn't turn around, and Renate realizes she's about to find out what inspection means. Renate's hands won't stop shaking as she grabs her uniform hem. The nurse watches, doesn't move closer, just watches. Clipboard ready. Renate lifts. Fabric bunches at her waist. Cold air hits skin she hasn't seen in 3 weeks. She waits for the hands, the violence, the thing they promised would come. The nurse leans in, looks at her waistband, the seams, the elastic edge of her underwear. Then she makes a mark on the clipboard, steps back. That's it? Next, the translator says. Renate stands there, uniform still bunched, brain refusing to process. The nurse is already looking at the next woman in line. Margit, the 19-year-old who can't stop shaking. Hat sich umgedreht. Warum hat sich umgedreht? He turned around. Why did he turn around? Sergeant Miller, 28, MP from Ohio, father of 2 daughters, keeps his eyes fixed on the wooden wall. He can hear everything, the fabric rustling, the pen scratching, the women breathing like cornered animals. He's done this inspection 17 times this month. He hates every second. But protocol says, male witness present for legal documentation, not to watch. To verify the nurse follows procedure, to testify if anything goes wrong. So he faces the wall, counts the wood grain, thinks about his daughters back in Cincinnati. Typhus incubation, 10 to 14 days. 1 infected POW can kill 200 within a month. The camp has 72 hours to check every arrival. That's the math. That's why these inspections happen within 6 hours of capture. The nurse is checking waistbands, armpits, hairlines, the place's lice nest. She's looking for insects, not flesh. Margit steps forward, lifts her uniform. Her whole body vibrates with terror. The nurse checks, makes a mark, moves on. No touching below the waist, no hands where they shouldn't be, just eyes, clipboard, pen. Renate finally lowers her uniform, backs away. Her mind is static. Ilsa, 22, former BDM youth leader, watches from the back of the line. She's been counting. 12 women inspected, 0 incidents, 0 hands. But she knows better. She was trained to know better. She whispers to the woman beside her, "It's a trick. The real inspection comes tonight." The nurse finishes the line. 37 women, 37 check marks. She nods to the soldier. He turns around. Doesn't look at anyone. They leave. The door closes, and 37 women stand in silence, waiting for the night that will prove Ilsa right. Ilsa was wrong, but she'll spend 8 hours refusing to believe it. The barracks goes dark at 1900. No electricity, just the gray winter light fading through gaps in the wooden walls. The women arrange themselves on canvas cots, 2 to a bed for warmth. Nobody sleeps. They wait. Ich habe bis zum Morgengrauen gewartet. Niemand kam. Das war schlimmer. I waited until dawn. No one came. That was worse. Outside, boots crunch on frozen mud. A patrol. The footsteps pass. Keep going. Don't stop. Margaret presses her face into the cot. Her body won't stop trembling. Dorothea, 31, the army nurse, pulls a thin blanket tighter around both of them. "Sleep," she whispers. "You need to sleep." "I can't." "They're not coming. You don't know that." Wehrmacht propaganda claimed 100% assault rate by Allied captors. Every woman in this barracks heard those numbers. They heard the stories. They saw the training films. Actual documented assaults in U.S. POW camps under 0.3%. Tonight, across all 12 women's barracks in this camp, 0 incidents. But numbers don't matter when you've been taught to fear. Private Chen, 20, Chinese-American from San Francisco, walks the night patrol. He passes the women's barracks every 40 minutes, checks the perimeter, moves on. He's never once tried the door. His orders: observe and report, nothing else. Ilsa sits on her cot with her back against the wall. She watches the door. Every creak makes her flinch. Every shadow looks like a man. Nothing. Nothing. Dorothea finally sleeps. Then Margaret. Then the others, one by one, exhaustion winning the war against terror. Only Ilsa remains awake. The door hasn't opened. By 0500, gray light begins seeping through the cracks. Ilsa's eyes burn. Her body aches. She hasn't moved in 8 hours. She was so certain. 340 hours of training, films, lectures, warnings, all building to this night. The night the Americans would prove everything true, and nothing happened. For most women, this would be relief. For Ilsa, it's something worse. If they were wrong about this, what else were they wrong about? The question lands like a bomb in her chest. The door opens. Ilsa's heart stops. But it's just the nurse from yesterday. Same clipboard, same Red Cross. Behind her, she's carrying something the women don't expect. Clean clothes. Clean clothes. The women stare like they've forgotten what cotton looks like. Nurse Collins, 31, U.S. Army Nurse Corps, sets the bundle on the nearest cot. Steam rises from the fabric, fresh from the camp laundry, pressed, folded. Margaret reaches out, touches the fabric, yanks her hand back like it burned her. "It's warm," she whispers. Nobody moves. Average German POW uniform by January 1945, worn 47 consecutive days without washing. Margaret's record is 53. She can't remember the last time she wasn't itching. "Meine Mutter hat mir gesagt, Feinde geben nichts. Sie nehmen nur. My mother told me enemies only take. They never give." The nurse says something. The translator clears her throat. "Your uniforms will be burned. Delousing protocol. These are replacements." "Burned?" Renate steps forward. "Those are German military uniforms." They're also carrying lice. The translator pauses, checks her notes. She says you're patients now, not prisoners. Patients don't wear infected clothing. U.S. Replacement Clothing Program. 2.3 million garments issued to POWs between 1944 and 1945. Cost per outfit, $470. Enemy soldiers wearing American taxpayer clothes. Corporal Vasquez, 26, supply officer, appears in the doorway with another bundle. He's got dark circles under his eyes. Lost his brother at Normandy 6 months ago. Now he's handing clean shirts to German women. War makes no sense. Margit finally grabs a shirt from the pile, pulls it against her chest. The fabric is soft, no lice, no stiff patches of dried sweat, just clean cotton that smells like soap. She starts crying, not quiet tears, full sobs that shake her whole body, 3 weeks of terror and exhaustion pouring out through her eyes. The nurse doesn't react, keeps distributing clothes. She's seen this before, the breakdown that comes when kindness replaces cruelty. Renata takes her bundle, holds it at arm's length, examines it like evidence. "Why?" she asks. The translator looks at Vasquez. He shrugs. "Geneva Convention. They're patients now." That's not an answer. Vasquez sets down his bundle, looks at her directly for the first time. His eyes are tired, his voice is flat. "You want the real answer?" The barracks goes quiet. Even Margit's sobs die down. "The real answer is that dead prisoners cost more than live ones." Renata blinks. The words don't compute. "Explain." Vasquez opens his mouth. What he says next will rewrite everything these women thought they understood about their captors. Dead prisoners require burial details. 6 men, 4 hours, paperwork for headquarters, notification to Red Cross, replacement guards for the ones doing burial. That costs $847 per corpse. Vasquez counts on his fingers like he's done this math 1,000 times. Living prisoners, $31 a month, food, medicine, housing, that's it. Renata stares at him. "You're keeping us alive because it's cheaper." "I'm keeping you alive because those are my orders. The orders exist because someone did the math. Sie behandeln uns gut, weil wir nützlich sind, nicht weil wir Menschen sind. They treat us well because we're useful, not because we're human." The words should hurt. They don't. Something about the honesty is almost comforting. No lies, no pretense of mercy, just logic. Return on investment for healthy POWs, 27-1 over the war's duration. Work details, intelligence value, post-war diplomacy. Every living German is a potential asset. Helga, 27, stands in the corner. She hasn't spoken since arriving. Former Wehrmacht translator, fluent in English. She's understood every word since day one, but she hasn't revealed it. Not yet. She's been watching, testing, waiting to see if the Americans are what they claim to be. 3 days of observation, 3 days of inspections that ended without assault, 3 days of food, medicine, clean clothes. The math adds up. But Helga needs more data. Margit finally stops crying. She's wearing the new shirt now. The clean fabric against her skin feels like a second chance. She'll keep this shirt for 52 years. When her grandchildren ask why, she'll say, "It was the first time I felt human in months." Renata turns back to Vasquez. "If we're assets, what happens when the war ends? When we're not useful anymore?" Vasquez shrugs. "You go home." Just like that? "Lady, I've got 200 German men in the camp next door who've been asking the same question. Half of them are eating better here than they did in the Wehrmacht. You think we want to keep feeding you forever?" The translator finishes. The women exchange glances. Dorothea speaks for the first time today. "And the inspections? The dress thing?" Vasquez's face hardens. "That's medical corps, not my department. But you know why." "I know what I've heard." "Tell us." He hesitates, looks at the nurse, looks at the door. "Tonight," he says. "Captain Morrison is coming. Ask him. He's the one who wrote the protocol." The barracks falls silent. Tonight they'll get answers, or more lies. Day 4, same words. "Lift your dress above your waist." Ilsa doesn't move. The nurse waits. Clipboard ready, soldier facing the wall. Same routine, same positions, same everything. But Ilsa's body has reached its limit. 3 nights of no assault, 3 days of food and clean clothes and medical checks that ended without violence. Every hour that passes without proving the propaganda true is another crack in the wall she built around her mind. 340 hours, That's how long they trained her. She was 14 when she joined the BDM. By 16, she could recite every enemy atrocity. By 18, she believed all of it. Americans were rapists. British were torturers. Soviets were animals. Now she's standing in a room with an American nurse who wants to check her waistband for lice. And something inside her snaps. 340 Stunden haben sie mir beigebracht, euch zu hassen. 3 Tage, es zu vergessen. 340 hours they taught me to hate you. 3 days to start forgetting, Ilsa screams. The sound tears out of her throat like broken glass. She backs into the corner, fists raised, eyes wild. Nein, nicht anfassen. The soldier turns, hand moving toward his weapon. But Dorothea is faster. She grabs Ilsa from behind, pins her arms. Stop! Stop! Renata joins. Together they hold Ilsa against the wall while she thrashes and screams in German that the translator won't repeat. The nurse doesn't move, doesn't call for guards, just waits. 23% of German women POWs experienced psychological breaks in the first week. Average recovery time with proper support, 11 days. Ilsa's breakdown lasts 9 minutes. When she finally stops fighting, she's on the floor. Dorothea is holding her. Renata is blocking the door. The nurse approaches slowly, crouches down, holds out the clipboard. Show her, she says. The translator kneels, shows Ilsa the inspection sheet, names, dates, checkboxes, typhus, lice, skin lesions, nothing else. This is what we're looking for, the translator says softly. Nothing more. See? It's written here. Ilsa stares at the paper. The words blur through her tears. Her whole life is on that clipboard. Everything she believed, everything she feared, all of it wrong. The nurse does something that isn't in any protocol. She sets down her clipboard, sits on the cold floor, right next to Ilsa, and waits. Nurse Collins sits on the frozen floor, doesn't speak, doesn't move, just sits. 47 minutes. Ilsa's breathing comes in ragged gasps at first, then slower, then steady. The nurse matches her rhythm, breath for breath. The other women watch from their cots. Some cry silently. Others just stare. Brigitte, 20, the youngest in the barracks, hasn't spoken since capture. She's been watching everything like a ghost, recording memories she'll never forget. The soldier left 20 minutes ago. The inspection is officially over. Collins is off duty now. Has been for the past 30 minutes. Sie hat nichts gesagt. Das war das Lauteste, was ich je gehört habe. She said nothing. It was the loudest thing I ever heard. Average U.S. Army nurse shift, 14 hours. Collins worked 12 today. She should be sleeping, eating, writing letters home. Instead, she's sitting on a frozen floor in enemy territory, breathing next to a woman who just tried to fight her. Total words spoken during these 47 minutes. 0. Sometimes silence is the only language that translates. At minute 43, Ilsa's hand moves, slowly, like she's not sure she's allowed. It lands on the nurse's sleeve. Collins doesn't flinch, doesn't pull away. Ilsa's fingers grip the fabric, hold on like it's the only solid thing in a dissolving world. At minute 47, Collins stands. Her knees crack from the cold. She looks down at Ilsa, touches her shoulder once, a gesture so small it barely qualifies as contact. Then she leaves. The door closes. Ilsa stays on the floor for another hour. When Dorothea finally helps her to a cot, she doesn't resist. That night, Ilsa sleeps, first time since capture without nightmares. First time since training began without dreams of American soldiers doing the things she was promised they would do. In her sleep, she doesn't lift her dress. Nobody asks her to. The inspection room is empty. When she wakes at dawn, something has shifted. Not healed, not fixed. Shifted. The propaganda is still there. The 340 hours don't disappear overnight. But now there's something else beside them. A 47-minute counter-memory. A nurse who sat in silence. A hand that touched without taking. Morning comes. Day 5. The inspection routine continues. But today, when the nurse enters, Ilsa is already standing, And she's not alone. The women are gathering. They have questions. And this time, they want answers. Helga finally speaks English. The Americans freeze. "I have been listening," she says. Perfect pronunciation. Not a trace of accent. "For 2 weeks, I understand everything." Sergeant Miller's hand goes to his weapon. The nurse takes a step back. But Helga isn't threatening anyone. She's holding a piece of paper, covered in handwriting. "These are our questions. 47 of them. The women want answers." Hat jede Frage beantwortet. In Deutschland hätte das den Tod bedeutet. He answered every question. In Germany, that would mean death. The nurse looks at Miller. Miller looks at the door. "Get Morrison," he says. Captain Morrison, 41, camp commander, arrives 14 minutes later. Former history professor from Yale. Drafted in 42. Never expected to run a POW camp. Never expected to face 47 questions from women who should hate him. He reads the list. Why the food? Why the medicine? Why no punishment for resistance? Why do the soldiers turn away during inspection? Why does a woman do the examining? Why are we wearing American clothes? Why did nobody come at night? Why are you treating us like humans? Morrison folds the paper, puts it in his pocket. "I'll answer every question," he says, "on one condition." The translator relays. The women wait. "You have to believe I'm telling the truth." Renate steps forward. "Why should we believe you?" "Because secrecy is for people who have something to hide." 12% of German POWs spoke functional English. Helga's fluency made her valuable. She'd been testing the Americans for 2 weeks, listening to their conversations, their jokes, their complaints about the food and the cold and the goddamn war that wouldn't end. Not once did she hear them discuss the women as targets. Not once. "Ask your first question," Morrison says. Helga reads, "Why the inspection? Why those words?" Morrison's jaw tightens. "Medical protocol, typhus screening, lice nest and clothing seams. We check waistbands, armpits, hairlines. That's where they hide." "Why a woman examiner?" "Geneva Convention, female prisoners examined by female medical staff only, no exceptions." "Then why is the soldier there?" Morrison pauses. This is the question they've been circling for 2 weeks, the one that matters most. "That answer requires context," he says. "Context you won't like." The women exchange glances. "Tell us anyway." Morrison takes a breath. What he says next will change how they see every inspection they've ever endured. "We hate it too." Morrison's words land like a grenade. Every man in this camp hates those inspections. Miller has 2 daughters. Chen's got a sister. Vasquez lost his mother last year. You think any of them want to stand in a room while women lift their clothes? "Der bewaffnete Mann war nicht da, uns zu bedrohen. War da, uns zu schützen. Vor seiner eigenen Seite." The armed man wasn't there to threaten us. He was there to protect us, from his own side. "The protocol requires a witness," Morrison continues. "Not for you, for the nurse. If she ever did something wrong, anything, the soldier is there to report it, to protect you. From us." Margaret whispers, "From your own people?" "From anyone who might abuse their position." The translator finishes. The barracks is silent. Total misconduct reports filed against medical staff in U.S. women's POW camps during the entire war. 2. Both resulted in court-martial within 30 days. Conviction rate, 100%. "Those men face the wall because they choose to," Morrison says. "The regulation says they must be present. It doesn't say they have to watch, so they don't." Renate speaks slowly, processing each word. "The armed man wasn't there to hurt us. He was there to make sure nobody else did." "Correct." "And the inspection keeps you alive. Typhus kills. Lice carry typhus. We check for lice. End of story." Ilsa hasn't spoken since her breakdown. She's been standing in the back, listening. Now she moves forward. "I was trained for 340 hours, she says. Films, lectures, testimonies, all telling me what you would do when you captured women. None of it mentioned lice. None of it mentioned protection. Morrison meets her eyes. That's the difference between propaganda and protocol. Propaganda tells you what to fear. Protocol tells us how to behave. And if the protocol fails, then men like Miller report it, and men like me make sure someone pays. Margaret touches her new shirt, the clean cotton, the absence of fear. We were taught to fear the wrong thing, she says quietly. March 1945. The inspections continue, but now the women understand. Some even help new arrivals. Explain the routine. Translate the words before panic sets in. Lift your dress above your waist. Same words, different meaning. The war is almost over. But what happens next? The ending nobody expected hasn't happened yet. VE Day, May 8, 1945. The war ends. The camp closes. Women are processed for repatriation. Trucks line up outside. Everyone is going home. Everyone except Ilsa. She stands in Captain Morrison's office, hands clasped, voice steady. I want to stay. Morrison looks up from his paperwork. The war is over. You're free to go. I know. I don't want to go. 6 Worte haben mich zerstört. Dann haben sie mich wieder aufgebaut. 6 words destroyed me. Then they rebuilt me, she explains. The U.S. medical units are moving into Germany. Civilian populations need delousing, disease prevention, the same inspections that terrorized her for weeks. She wants to perform them. I can explain the procedure in German. I can tell them what you're actually doing so they don't feel what I felt. 8:47. German women processed through U.S. POW camps, documented assaults, 0. Women who later volunteered for Allied medical programs, 31. Ilsa becomes number 32, June 1945. Frankfurt. She stands in a processing center. A young German woman trembles before her. Civilians terrified of American doctors. Ilsa speaks softly. Lift your dress above your waist. The woman freezes. Same fear, same memories of propaganda. It's for lice, Ilsa continues. Only lice. See the checklist? That's all they're looking for. I know because I was you, 2 months ago, in Belgium. The woman lifts her dress. The American nurse checks, makes a mark, moves on. No screaming, no breakdown, no 340 hours of deprogramming required. Just understanding, passed from one woman to another, 50 years later. 1995. A documentary crew interviews Ilsa, now 72. Behind her, framed on the wall, the original inspection checklist from Belgium. Those 6 words destroyed me, she says. I heard them and thought the worst thing imaginable was about to happen. Instead, they checked for insects, gave me clean clothes, fed me, protected me from their own soldiers. She pauses, touches the frame. The worst thing wasn't the inspection. The worst thing was realizing I'd spent my whole life being taught to fear people who only wanted to keep me alive. The camera holds on her face. Propaganda tells you what to fear. Protocol tells you what's true. I spent 340 hours learning fear, and 3 days learning that everything I feared was a lie. Lift your dress above your waist. Same words. Different woman saying them now. The same words that destroyed her, rebuilt her.